As I just mentioned, we've got Senator Elizabeth Warren on deck tonight. We are right now maneuvering her too near a camera. There are a lot of moving parts when it comes to talking to senators live tonight because these Republican votes to repeal Obamacare, what are expected to be doomed votes, at least in the first instance tonight. These votes are unfolding live tonight, well into the evening, with a little bit of unpredictability in this hour. And we don't want to interfere with any senator's ability to vote. But with all of those caveats, we should have Elizabeth Warren here live shortly. Tonight, we should also be seeing Congressman Eric Swalwell, who's on the Intelligence Committee. The Intelligence Committee in the House today had a very interesting day, including hearing from White House senior advisor and presidential son-in-law Jared Kushner. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk with Congressman Swalwell today about that testimony, that interview that they did today with Jared Kushner, is because of the guy who I have come to think of as the other Nixon. The other Nixon that's not President Nixon, but who still comes up whenever you Google impeach Nixon. Let me explain. He had 7 children. And although he came from a prominent local family and he had a good job, he had a very prestigious job, tons of job security, his salary at his good job was not going up, even though all his kids kept growing up and his kids kept getting admitted to college. He had 7 kids, 5 of them in college. Stretched thin, even with a good job. So he started asking around. He let it be known that he was looking for ways to make some extra money. And it turned out a local businessman, a wealthy guy, had just the thing for him. This local wealthy businessman told him, yeah, wouldn't you know it? In fact, I have an amazing investment opportunity available to you and only you. It's so amazing, you don't have to put up a single dollar of your own money, but you will get tens of thousands of dollars in regular royalties payments. Sounds good? Yeah, right? That sounds great. And within months, our friend, the guy with the good job, father of 7, he was taking in tens of thousands of dollars steadily from this basically magic investment opportunity that he was offered by a guy in town. Now, to make this appear even the slightest bit legal, they retroactively dated some promissory notes to make it look like our guy had put up some of his own money in the first place, but he really hadn't. He actually paid out nothing. And he made $30 and then $40 and then $50 and then $60 and then $70,000 on and on and on. Financially, it was a dream. I mean, 5 kids in college, right? That has to hurt. But he had figured out basically that there was this spigot of free money that he could tap to ease that financial pain. And as you might expect, this whole deal was spectacularly illegal, not least because the guy who took the money, our dad of 7, was a federal judge. And in case it wasn't clear to him from the outset, it soon became clear that there was a real cost associated with this free-for-nothing amazing money source that he had started tapping. In August 1980, a small plane landed at the Hattiesburg Airport in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That plane landed late one night after the airport had closed. It was a small plane, twin-engine Cessna, landed at the Hattiesburg Airport after the airport was shut for the night and all the lights were off. That's weird. At least the feds thought it was weird. They actually tailed the plane. And right after that little airplane landed at the closed airport, the feds landed right behind them. And it turned out that little prop plane landing after closing at that darkened municipal airport was carrying almost a ton of marijuana. And it turns out the co-manager of the airport, who was in on the whole drug smuggling with airplanes after hours at the Hattiesburg Airport thing, the co-manager of the airport who was in on it, that was the son of the wealthy businessman, the one who'd been hooking up that judge with that awesome secret illegal oil and gas royalties deal. And so, you know what happens next. His son gets arrested in this drug smuggling thing. So the businessman calls up his judge. Calls up this judge whose skids he has been greasing for months now. He calls him up and says, hey, I need you to do something about this drug smuggling case that my son is all messed up in. Now imagine you are this judge. You've got 7 kids, 5 in college. You've got this stream of money coming in now, which you are really getting used to. You don't want to lose that. And the not available to the public awesome investment opportunity this guy hooked you up with, that's given you all this money, that was clearly illegal. So naturally, you would not want that getting out. You're a federal judge, right? You're a respected public official. You add all those things up, and this judge, he was really in no position to say no to the request, right? I mean, the son's case concerning the Cessna full of marijuana at this airport, that case was actually not in front of this particular judge. But, you know, a federal judge, the chief judge for that district at the time, that's a person with real influence in legal circles in that area, real sway, particularly over prosecutors and other lawyers who might end up arguing cases before him. So our friend, he puts in a word. And even though it's not his case, and even though the kid had already pled guilty in the drug smuggling case, that judge putting in the word for the guy got the case shelved. Kid's gonna be fine. And there are two things you need to know about that now, all these years later. First is that the judge's name was Walter Nixon. He's the other Nixon, and that can be very confusing. He is not at all related to Richard Nixon. But because he's Nixon, he's ungoogleable even all these years later, because guess what comes up when you type in Nixon, corruption, impeachment? Yeah, what turns up is not Walt. So that's one thing to know. This is the other Nixon, not the one who was president. But the second thing to know about this is that this Nixon, the judge, Walt, the one who started this whole saga by looking for a little extra cash on the side of his salary, he did get impeached, and he had to be. Initially, he was put on trial for the scheme, and he was convicted, and he got sent to prison. He got sentenced to 5 years in prison. But even after that, they didn't let it go. Even after he got out of serving his prison sentence, they still impeached him in the U.S. House of Representatives to be sure he would never again serve as a judge. The vote was 417 to nothing in the House. And then they voted in the Senate to remove him from the bench.
After carefully investigating the facts and hearing all the evidence, the House voted 417 to 0 in favor of the 3 articles of impeachment. Accordingly, you must now grapple with the same question faced by the House. A man who repeatedly lied, is he fit to hold a high office of federal judge? I hope you agree that the answer is obvious. To preserve the integrity of the judiciary, to maintain public respect for law and order, Judge Nixon must be removed from the bench.
And the Senate voted to remove him. When Judge Walter Nixon had been taking all that money, when he got that call asking him to help the guy out, help out that guy's son with that drug smuggling case, Judge Nixon might have really wanted to help. He might have been constitutionally inclined to do anything he could for that guy who, in effect, had given him all that money, and for his family, and for anything else that that guy wanted him to do. He might have been inclined to do it. He might have done it happily. But you know what? If he wasn't inclined to help, if it struck him as wrong for him as a federal judge to weigh in on somebody else's case, to use his influence to get the prosecution of this unrelated case quashed because he knew the guy, I mean, if that made him feel oogie, if he knew that was wrong, if he didn't want to put in a word for that guy's son, was he really in a position to say no? Once he had taken the money? Once he had taken that supposed investment deal that he knew was too good to be true, where he didn't actually have to put up any of his own money? I mean, what was the bigger risk? Somebody exposing him for that dodgy investment deal he was benefiting from? That bribe? Or somebody finding out that he might have helped quash that case quietly for that guy's son? Which is the bigger risk once you're in that case? Are you really in a position to say no? Tough call, right? People who have to make tough calls like that are called compromised. People who hold a public position, a position where they're expected to act in the public's interest, but they've done things that the public at large doesn't know about. Things that are either illegal or that they don't want to explain publicly, or both. And as long as somebody else knows what they did, either by observing the secret bad behavior or by participating in it with them, that public official is compromised. They're compromised. You cannot trust them to do what's right for the public. because of their ulterior motive and the coercion that can follow it. And so that person has to get out of office. Prison is not even enough in the case of a federal judge, right? In the other Nixon case. The House and then the Senate moved to get him off of the bench and to remove him from the bench in a way that he could never, ever be in that sort of position of public trust again. It is dangerous for a compromised person to continue to be in public office because there is a non-zero chance that they will, of their own accord, take action to please whoever it is that's done them incriminating favors in the past. And same goes for anybody who just knows about those incriminating favors, even if they're not enthusiastic about doling out special treatment to the interests that they owe or whoever knows what they did. There's also a non-zero chance that that public official could be forced, could be coerced, could be threatened or blackmailed into giving special treatment to whoever it is who gave them those sweetheart deals, right? Under the threat that the official's past behavior will be exposed if they don't do it. The story of the other Nixon, the other Nixon impeachment, the Judge Walter Nixon impeachment, is a reminder of the urgency we used to feel as a country, that Congress used to feel about the prospect that a public official might be compromised. A public official might be making decisions not in the public interest, but in order to further some secret arrangement or out of fear that that secret arrangement would be revealed. When a public official has a secret like that, it makes them genuinely vulnerable to coercion or blackmail, and then they are a danger to the United States. When Walter Nixon was impeached and removed, the vote was 417-0 in the House, and then it was 89-8 in the Senate. This used to be the kind of thing we had bipartisan consensus on. The first national security advisor in this administration was allowed to resign almost 3 weeks after the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, went to the White House with a warning that he was compromised, that Michael Flynn had been concealing evidence of his multiple contacts with the Russian government, contacts that the Russians clearly knew about, and they therefore had him in a compromised position where he might feel obliged or potentially coerced by them in his official conduct as national security advisor. That is dangerous as all get out to the United States of America. Nevertheless, after that warning, the president kept him on board at the White House for another 18 days following that warning before he finally resigned. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is being all but chased out of office now by the president for reasons we'll discuss later. But his troubles as Attorney General have also included him apparently concealing evidence of his own multiple contacts with the Russian government. Senior White House official Jared Kushner interviewed with the Senate Intelligence Committee staff yesterday and under oath with the House Intelligence Committee today. For months, Jared Kushner left his multiple meetings with Russian officials off his security clearance application. And he stood by saying nothing while senior spokespeople for the campaign and the transition and the administration and senior officials, including the vice president and the president himself, asserted publicly multiple times that there had been no meetings between the Trump campaign and representatives of the Russian government during the campaign, when Jared Kushner knew, in fact, that those assertions were incorrect because he'd been in those meetings. As of yesterday, Jared Kushner was still newly disclosing Russia meetings that he had never previously disclosed. And whether or not you care about why this presidential campaign and this transition took so many more meetings with Russians than any other American presidential campaign ever has, while the Russians were mounting a massive multi-pronged attack on our election to try to benefit their campaign, whether or not you care about the substance of those meetings and contacts and communications, presumably there is a reason they did not disclose those meetings before. And if Russia, at any point since those meetings and contacts and communications happened, if Russia at any point decided to hold that over these guys, who weren't publicly admitting to it, right? If Russia decided at any point to hold that over these guys, to influence their conduct as American officials, then what's our recourse as a country? We used to take action to protect ourselves from that as a country. How do we protect ourselves from that now? Hold that thought.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.